Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Build Tomorrow Hackathon follow-up with the Client Sdk installation by Weavy. I'm Chris Little, the technology evangelist at Weavy, and as usual, with me here today is Ajay Shane, the developer advocate of Weavy. Without further ado, the disposition of this meeting or this meetup will be very simple. We will start with having Ayush going over how to set up the Client Sdk. And afterwards, we will go through some of the most asked questions from our community forum. So good morning, Ayush. Are you with me today?
Yeah, good morning, Chris. And so the focus today will be to look at how to integrate the client SDK. And as well as in the community, there were some questions regarding if we are trying to deploy on the Microsoft Azure, then we are like there is a lot of credits that is being exhausted or burned. So I'm going to talk about the alternative over here on how can you present your prototype. And let's start with the integration of the client SDK first. So what I'm going to do right now is that I have created a GitHub repository for the demo of client SDK, and I'm going to link it over here in the chat. So if anyone wants to follow up, they can do that. And so this is a particular Python Django framework. And we are going to look at how easy it is to integrate the Weavy client SDK. And so the installation instructions are quite simple, and there is no hustle related to the database management or something like that over here in this particular demo project. And what I am going to do now is let me quickly share my screen. So Chris, can you confirm, like, is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. So over here, just a second.
Yes, let me add in while you're preparing that the Q&A is of course open and I'm monitoring it. So if our participants or viewers have any questions, just pop them in the Q&A or in the chat.
Okay, great. So now let's start. So basically what we have done over here is that first of all, we have to install the Weavy backend local instance. And over here, this is the local instance of my Weavy backend. So as you can see, right now, we do not have much over here. So to start integrating the client SDK, what you have to do is you have to first of all create a new client. So what you can do is you can go to the manage and you can go to the clients. So if you have not created a client over here, you can use this plus button and you can add a new client and you can provide your own client ID and client secret. So for now, I have created a client for this particular demo. And as you can see that my client IDs and client secret, both of them are same. Okay, so now what you have to do is once you have created the client ID and the client secret, so if you want to start integrating the client SDK, the next step is to figure out in your web page, in your particular application, what you are trying to build in that particular application. How are you going to use this Weavy instance and what are the components or features that you want to have? Okay, so to start with, what I am going to do right now is I am going to again link you something. So this is basically my Visual Studio Code and the project of which the GitHub repository I already shared with you. So the instructions are quite simple. And over here, what you have to do is after you follow the GitHub instructions, which are listed over here in the GitHub repository, that you just have to clone this repository. You can do this by going over here, copying the URL and then just git clone and this. After that, just create a virtual environment and install all the dependencies inside the virtual environment. And then you are going to start this particular project file. Okay, so now after you start the project, there is no need for you to start the project right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a reverse proxy of my particular local instance of port 8. So basically, let me open, first of all, let me open up a incognito mode and let me show you that. So over here, this command will start your server. And as you can see that my virtual environment is this, I am right now on my Windows machine. Okay. And this is where my particular project is lying right now. This is the web server, localhost. Okay. So now this project is particularly about, let us say you have an anonymous platform. Okay. And in this anonymous platform, there is no need for you to take the individual's information. So let us say everyone will get a chance, everyone will get a username, and they can use their username over here. So let's say I want myself to be called as David. Okay, so I just click on submit, and okay, so if you're on the incognito mode, you have to allow the cookies. Okay, so let us say that I want to call myself as David. Okay, so I will just call myself as David, and there can be anything over here. For the purpose of this demo, there is just this video which is being played. Okay, and the point is that, as you can see that whenever after I clicked on the submit button, this particular Weavy instance booted up very quickly. Okay, so I can do anything over here. Say I can say that, hey, I am in. Okay, and now the good point is that I am going to share a URL with you, and you can also log into the same instance as I am and create your own version. Okay, so account. So I'm going to use local tunnel, and so I'm going to paste this particular URL with you guys in the chat. So if you will open up this URL, then you will be able to log in to this particular instance as I am. Okay, so once you will open up for the very first time, let me just open it up. Just click on continue, and then you will be able to start this particular instance. So today I'm going to talk about how is this thing happening, how am I integrating this particular client SDK so that I get this particular container over here, and that's it. So this is the purpose of this particular tutorial. And as you can see, or I can also do like this, that I can create another incognito mode, and I can, whatever the URL I have passed to you, I can first of all allow this particular site to allow cookies, and then I can do anything over here. So let's say that I am going to call myself as Chris. And now over here, Chris is logged in, and this is Chris. And if you will see this from the other, okay, so as you can see that now you can see the comments of the Chris over here in your particular local instance itself. So this is another way of like, if you do not want to deploy your particular Weavy instance, just create a reverse proxy of your local instance, and you can customize the name over here, and you can search a bit about local tunnel and how it works. That can be done as well. Okay, so now let's start with the client SDK. So to perform all these particular operations, what I have to do is, first of all, in this particular GitHub repository, you can find out that in the Django framework, I have just created one app, and just because there is just one page, this page, and that's it. So there is just one page which is called as the home page. Okay, so if you will go over here, so now coming to the main point, that how are these things happening? Okay, so whenever I click on this particular my URL, there is a pop-up and you have to enter your name. Like there is no other way out. You cannot click somewhere else and then escape this step. Okay, so once you click on this name, what I am going to do is I am going to create a Weavy user of the same username, whatever you are providing me over here. So on the very first instance, whenever you click on this particular, whenever you come to this particular page, you are going to have this kind of pop-up. Okay, so how am I going to show this pop-up? So what is the purpose of this pop-up? So the purpose over here is to collect the username of the particular user. Okay, so once I get the username, I can create a I already have the client ID and the client secret which I created from which I created over here. So this is my client ID and client secret. Now for this particular client, I have to create a space, and inside that space, I have to create a feature of Weavy, which we saw is the activity feeds over here. Now inside that feature, I also want to know which users are logging in, and for that particular reason, I am going to collect the username so that I know that which user is logged in. Okay, so once I know once the user clicks on the submit over here, what I'm going to do is I am going to create a Weavy. I will try to log in this particular user. Okay, therefore I'm using this incognito mode, because if I will log in on my particular over here in my browser, then I will lose access to this particular page, because one user can be logged in at once. So if the user is not admin, then you are not going to see all these details over here. So it's safe that you, whenever you do your testing, you do it on the incognito mode. Okay, so now the second thing is, okay, so once you click on submit, then what happens next? Okay, so if you go over here inside the project, you will find out that inside the template, there is just one template called as base.html. And this is the template of this particular page. Okay, so there are two sections over here. This one first section is about is when you actually uh, click on submit, and then the page which you see is this section. Okay, the second section is about this pop-up. Okay, so as you can see over here, that by default, what I'm going to do is please choose your username, and I have provided this as an ID. Okay, and whenever you are going to submit, whenever you're going to click on this submit, then there is a function which is being called over here. So there are different ways you can do these things. This is just for the demo purpose, and this way is very easy to do. Okay, so now I am going to attach a variable over here. Okay, as you can see that right now what I am going to do is I'm going to pass on this particular value whenever I'm going to call this function. That inside this function, this is the parameter kind of thing. Okay, that hide is the parameter. So that's what I'm checking. If the parameter is hide, then it means that like the user filled out the form, and in that particular case, I'm going to collect the username. Okay, so if you go over here, you can see that I am going to collect the username over here. Then the ID over here is the username of this particular input. There are many ways to do this, and there are neat ways also to do these things, because let's say that there are two users who want the same username, then there should be there should be some function to check over here. So you can create a route and check if this particular username is unique or not. And if it is, then you log in, and if it is not, then you can place an alert, or again another warning that please choose a different username. Okay, but to keep the thing simple, so what I'm going to do is whenever the user clicks on submit, then this pop-up will actually hide. Okay, so this condition will become true, and I'm going to create an Ajax request. Now this Ajax request, the purpose over here is to get the username and pass it to the backend. Okay, so inside the backend, so you can see that over here I'm going to place a get request, and every time I click on submit, you can see that this is going to be a get request on the route slash login, because this is the route over here slash login. Okay, and it is passing the username, whatever you're going to get, and also the CSRF token. So CSRF token is of not important right now. What's important is the login and the route and the username. Okay, so whatever username I'm collecting from the user, and after clicking on submit, I'm going to create an Ajax request, and I'm going to pass that particular data to my backend. So this is the typical format of an Ajax request. It's a GET request, and I'm going to pass this particular data, which is a dictionary kind of format. Okay, and here is the username. And now once I get this username from the front end, this is the view on which I'm going to process things. Okay, so the request has to be get, and the second thing is whatever I am passing over here, you can say that you can see that the variable is name, and it has this particular value. So this name variable is, I'm going to collect it over here. So this is the name. And now remember that we created a client ID and a client secret, right? So this ISS over here. So how now the point is, after you do this, after you get the username of the user, you have to create a JWT token and pass that token to the front end, so that that token can be used by the Weavy instance to log in that particular user. Okay, so the next step after you create over here your client ID and client secret, next step is to get the details of the user who is going to use your instance and pass it to the backend. So that step we did over here by placing this Ajax request. And once I got the username of the user from the front end, I'm going to create a token. So remember that tokens should always be created on the backend. If you're doing it for the testing purpose, or if you just want to play around with the features, there are other ways in which you can create the token, which we have already discussed in the developer portal. There are several articles, and those are temporary methods, because there's your code should not expose the mechanism and how you're creating the token and all this stuff, because in the payload you can literally pass on anything that you want. And now this point is that you have to create a JWT token on your backend if you are going to use this for the production. Okay, so now this is the key, the secret key, okay, which I have created. And now this is the payload for the JWT token. Now inside the payload, what are the fields that you have to pass on? So these fields you can actually get by going to the developer portal. And inside the developer portal, if you will come down, then you will have this tutorial in the basics, where we talk about client side user authentication. And over here we have explained in detail about what are the various claims. So the few claims are the required claims. Okay, so for example, the expiry of this particular, the expiration time of this token, and the next is the ISS and sub, and we have provided a brief description of each and every claim. Okay, so these are the few things, and these are the optional claims. And you can see in the optional claims we have this email ID. So if the email ID is present, then this is used to check if a user already exists in Weavy, or if a new user account should be created. Okay, so if the email ID is present, then we are going to check and we are not going to create it again. But if the email ID is not present, then like if your email ID is like kind of convenient to pass, because for each for each email account, we will only create one user. So if you pass on email ID for the login purpose inside your payload, that is good, but it's not compulsory. It's one of the optional claims. Okay, so the what I'm going to pass over here are the required claims. That's it. The name is again, I think it's optional. It's the display name of the user. Okay, so whatever the username that particular user wants to log in with, we are going to keep it that itself. And in the sub, it's the unique identifier, which is usually the user ID. So user ID is again the same as username, and that's what we took from the user. And those details we will pass it over here, and this ISS should be the client ID. And now whatever payload you are going to pass and create a JWT token, that needs to have a signature, and that signature should be like it should have a verified signature with your client secret. So inside the Python, I have created import, like I have used this PyJWT library. Okay, and this library can easily create an JWT token for me. So I just pass in the payload, and this key is the secret key, and just use the algorithm that HS256, and that's the token. That's my JWT token that I need to pass. Okay, so once I get this particular token, I send it back to the response as a response to this particular request, Ajax request. And therefore this, you can see over here that whenever I get this particular data from the backend, which contains this token. Okay, so over here I have used the variable token, and that is being addressed over here. So I take this particular token. Now, once I know the token, that means I can uniquely identify a user right now with its JWT token. So I'm going to create a new Weavy instance, and inside that instance, I'm going to pass this particular JWT token. Okay. So inside that instance, now the Weavy instance is created for that particular user. So now the user is logged into that particular instance. So what's next? So the next is that we have to create this particular. So this is now right now after. So we are at this particular step. Okay. So we are now at this particular step after completing the uh, login of the user. Now we want that user to have, like, now we want this particular container to be displayed over here, right? So we have to create this. So for this part, so over here now the job of the first section is done. And once you click on submit, this section comes into the play. And right now you can see that I have created just two columns on the right, on the left hand side of on the left hand side, you can see that there is just one video, and on the right hand side you have the VV feature. Okay, so on the left hand side it's easy. This is just a video, and on the right hand side I have just created a container, and I have just provided it an ID of VV fields. Okay, so remember this ID, because right now once the user is logged in, we will pass that details over here, and we will display the VV feature inside this particular div with the ID of VV fields. Okay, so as you can see that what I'm going to create is I'm going to create a space called as demo, and in that space I'm going to add a new app which is having a type of post, and the key is used to uniquely identify the application. And therefore, let us say that if you will shut this particular instance down right now, and you're going, if you will open this instance tomorrow again, then since the key does not change, so every details, like every messaging, so it's persistent in everything is stored in the VV database. And please note that while doing this entire demo, I never created my own database. I never was worried about the authentication of the user in the VV. And I was never worried about how are these things going to be stored and what all and what not. So because I see many questions being asked in the VV community that is the MongoDB database sufficient? Can I use Google Firebase? I want to use this particular data. Please understand that VV automatically takes care of everything over here. And unless you do not have a very specific requirement, I would suggest that you please use this as an integration tool. And the focus of your prototype should always be more on how can you improvise the VV integration and make it look better for your particular product or application. Okay, and it should be less on how can I make changes inside my VV. Okay, because there are certain things, let us say that if you want to change these particular three things, that okay, I want to change this, I do not want to have this, I want to do something else, I do not want to have file sharing, or maybe I want to have a file sharing, but I want another feature over here, some another place through which I can integrate this. Then all these things, for doing all these things, you need to do changes in the VB server SDK. Okay, so this I would suggest that if there are no specific requirements as such for your application, then please you stick to the improvisation of this particular feature into your client SDK, and like you can find out innovative ways to customize this. And but still, like, we have a lot of flexibility in terms of improvising the server SDK as well. So if you guys will do something good in customizing the server SDK as well, then it's very good, because changes, we are looking for solutions, and your ideas can be something out of the box, and that can help us as well to understand our product better. Okay, so feel free to do the changes as well. Okay, so now after doing this, you see that we have created a space, and inside that space we have created an application. Okay, so over here you can do anything. I have created activity feeds, and but you can you can use anything else. Okay, so this is just like, this was about the demo, because everything over here is done, because once you do this, then your page will have this particular Weavy feature. And that's it. Like, this is all about how do you integrate the client SDK and keep things going.
Voila, perfect. Thank you very much, Ayush. Let's talk a bit about the, because I don't, maybe you mentioned it, maybe I missed it, but the heavy usage of Azure credits when people set up, you said you had thought about some alternatives.
Yes, so I just what I wanted to emphasize is that if you are not able to use deployments on uh, Azure, then what you can do is for your local instance, you can create a reverse proxy. And
Yeah.
what I'm going to I can type it over here on the chat. One service which is open source and is free of cost, and you can customize, you can have a custom domain as well.
Yeah.
So in the local tunnel, what it is going to do is whenever you are going to open your Weavy instance locally, as I did, you can expose your local tunnel, you can expose your port onto the HTTPS domain, and those can be viewed by anyone else. So as I shared the link over here, um, of my particular of the tunnel that I created.
Yeah.
So in that particular way, you can just use this particular thing as an alternative to show the judges about your particular submission, like solution, without actually deploying it on Azure. So if you do not have credits, then you can do this, and it will work with any. This is not specific to Django or Python. This is local tunnel is used for the exposing your port which is on your particular local machine to the public domains. Okay, so you just have to specify the port number on which your web server is running, and create a local tunnel for that, and share the link with anyone who wants to test it out. So if you feel like you will not be able to get enough credits to work around with Microsoft Azure, or if you do not have any credits on AWS or GCP or anything like that, just use this particular feature to allow us to test your submission, because testing is important when it comes to prototype phase.
Make perfect sense. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much for the client SDK integration that you showed us how to do that. Excellent work. I think most questions are actually asked and answered in the community forum, which you can find at community.weavy.com. So is there anything you would like to add, Ayush, that we haven't talked about?
I think it's good because whatever progress the hackathon participants are making in the community is good, because initially they were facing difficulties in integrating or like how to authenticate users. But right now, I think that most of like many of the participants are able to create JWT tokens, if not on their backend, but at least using some online tools, and they are like they know the procedure now. So it's important to understand that JWT tokens are, after you authenticate them, okay, so there are various things that you can do with them. And if you let us say, if you can have multiple applications, like I just showed you on a single page, you can have multiple various other types of features as well. So I just deployed the activity feeds. You can deploy multiple features on the same page itself. Okay. So try to do things like this and provide the user to sign out, because that's not talked about yet. So very soon I'm going to write an article about how easy it is to sign in and sign out. And so that's it. Like, keep playing around and ask questions whenever you're stuck, and we will be there to help you out.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so just to clarify again, because it's one of the most frequently asked questions in this meetup, that local tunnel is independent of whatever you might use.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I think that sums up today. This recording will be available in roughly anything between 1 and 5 hours, depending on the compression rate of Zoom. I would like to thank all participants for being good sports. And Ayush Jain, thank you for a very good presentation. And if nothing else, good luck on submitting your prototypes. Use the community forum, use the developer portal. And this recording will be available in the community forum once it's ready. All right, thank you very much. Ayush, any famous last words?
Nothing. Like, thank you so much, participants, and keep using Weavy.
Yeah, cool. Hang tight, everybody.